Thank you. Check. Well, we have a great group of people up here to talk, and we were just talking backstage, and it seems like we could go on for hours. I'm Sam Decker, CEO and co-founder of Mass Relevance. We're a platform for bringing real-time social experiences to brand and digital experiences. I want to bring on stage Mike and John. So we're going to try to move quickly because we have a lot to talk about. John Conway is Vice President of Corporate Marketing at EMC here at the end. He leads EMC Digital Marketing. And Mike Scafidi is Director of Digital Production for PepsiCo. So we have a B2C and a B2B perspective up here. So it's very unique. So welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sam.
To start out, the topic of this is the content conundrum. And there's a lot to get into in terms of the conundrum of content, of creating content, where it goes, of creating good content. One of the biggest challenges, as I talk to brands and agencies, is how does this get budgeted for? If we're talking about content as a possible means of new advertising, there's a lot of questions that come up. But first is, how does it get resourced? Because content is so tied to social, and social budgets are strained. Tell folks here how your content is getting funded and where you see that going in terms of budgeting.
So, what we see from our media perspective is, our media budget is fairly consistent, and it's just how we allocate those dollars. So as we look at content, we really look at the efficacy of that content over other channels, and we're continually putting more and more dollars towards that.
So we look at the content budget out of the media budget as well. We're not a huge advertising company, so we look at media, social, and content sort of grouped together. So we are shifting our budget, I would say, from less of an advertising specific and more toward content and social. And that's, I would say, traditional spend, if it was 90% traditional spend advertising, that's shifting toward 90% being social and content.
And Mike, you have a unique perspective about content and owned media as it relates to advertising. Share a little bit about how Pepsi looks at content and its measurability and its impact.
Right. So, as we look at the media value of our content, the equation is changing. We don't look at content as a cost to our business, as a cost of marketing. We're actually looking at content as actually creating an intrinsic value within itself. So the value of media, and we start to look at what it would cost to get that same kind of impression with our consumers, and we actually start to offset our marketing budgets with the value of those content themselves.
So does that mean that the advertising teams are looking more towards content, or that advertising budgets are shifting that way to start to fund that?
Well, what it really does is it puts an emphasis on the quality of the content. The higher quality content, the higher value that content represents in and of itself. And as we have higher quality of content, it actually offsets our media budget more fundamentally, where the efficiency of the dollars spent for media are certainly increased as we have a more valuable piece of content that we're putting out there.
So we look at the measurement piece from really traditional way of looking at it as a reach, then there's engagement, and then how viral our content becomes. So one of the things that we would say is that our conversation is really the new brand, and what drives the conversation is content. So to Mike's point, the quality of the content is very important, and also being relevant in the point of attack, if you will, for a conversation, so that you are engaging customers and prospects at their place and time, not sort of us just pushing in what we think is what they want to talk about, more listening to what they want to say, what they want to talk about, and then strategically placing content into those conversations.
You both mentioned quality content. That is one of the biggest challenges I see out there, is creating content that is engaging but still on brand. What are either the mistakes you've made or the things that you've learned that you wish you had done earlier that help your teams create quality content?
I think, giving focus to the owned channels is The mistake has been, for the last 20 years, everyone has looked at digital as a cost. As a brand, the value of the own channel is really quite critical in understanding the entire equation about digital marketing. It's not just about marketing itself. It's creating a new product, right? For a company like PepsiCo, where we are, a CPG company, it's really interesting when we start to look at content as a new product that we are delivering, and how we value that new product as opposed to what's just on the store shelves.
I would say the things that we've done well have been empowering the employee base to get socially savvy. So we've launched some internal training programs, getting people comfortable with an internal platform on how to engage socially. So that's been very positive. I'd say an area that we have been a little slow to move to is towards self-publishing. As we empower the employee base, EMC is a big company, roughly 60,000 employees. They are our best brand ambassadors. They're the ones that have the relationships with customers. And so the more that we can empower and enable them to engage directly, the better off we are. From a technological point of view, things that I need to work on would be getting self-service publishing so that folks can not just engage in Twitter, but also through our main flagship platform, emc.com.
So when you have employees who are self-serve publishing, you can technically solve the problem. Talk about how you've ensured or helped them make quality content and legally approved content.
Well, that's always a challenge. I think one of the things about social media, really, you have to trust your employee base. So just like if you're at a cocktail party and you're talking about EMC or your company, you expect people to behave in a certain way. And so the way we're monitoring social is the same thing. It's a behavior that we just expect, and we don't run into issues. On the topic of quality content, I think that's hard. I think people do look at producing content really from either too narrow of a technical perspective, but people are subject matter experts in particular areas. So it's kind of staying within that swim lane of your expertise and encouraging people, it's okay to make a mistake. It's okay to, maybe not have every answer, but leveraging the power of the enterprise can sort of help answer questions and engage real time.
And do you incentivize your employees to create content? How do you get them to actually do it?
We don't. There's no MBO because it's kind of in a way, MBO, means by objective, but it is, we just expect it to be someone's job. And so that's why I mentioned that internal piece of really running educational programs. We're launching things like Social University. We have social activation kits, getting people comfortable sort of within the family of participating within an internal platform, and then gradually getting people externally comfortable. So we have a fleet of bloggers who are an external component, but we want to get our engineering community to blogging. We want to get our executives more engaged as well, and I think that's where this university component really comes into play.
So I think one of the challenges is that, this appreciation for content, the shift to creating good content, the budgeting and all those things, but really that is all following some cultural shift inside the company, some appreciation for moving in this direction. What would you say helped drive that for your organizations? What's the one thing that helped drive the appreciation, the movement towards resourcing, the focus on it?
For us, it was really two things. Some executive leadership, and then I would say just kind of hammering it away at getting people comfortable, and also doing pilots. So where we've made a lot of success is picking a particular product line, a particular executive, a particular product launch as an example, and then trailing that end to end and showing the power of engagement, the tie to revenue. And once you have those early wins behind you, it makes a big difference. So really the focus on pilots, very small focus with a beginning and an end on a short period of time, and then promoting that win internally is how we've really rallied the company around this.
Yeah, I think for PepsiCo, we've obviously always been a curator of pop culture. And looking at, the digital age and social, we started to figure out how to become more relevant within pop culture. Obviously, our social channels have been critical, but then in 2012, we relaunched our Pepsi brand with Pepsi Pulse. And there's been amazing learnings over the last 2 years as we've been a brand as publisher, and starting out just curating content, and now focusing on generating content and becoming a relevant part of the conversation. And actually leading the conversation and being a primary source of content for other articles and other bloggers to write about. And it's certainly critical as our brand's positioning as being, a cornerstone in pop culture.
You talked about the importance of the owned media, your controlled media, the domain that you have. Is that growing in importance because of the content you're creating, and that's bringing people back and sort of this viral coefficient? What's increasing the importance of your own domain?
Yeah, so the domain is actually really interesting as we look at the ability for our brand to show up when we have consumers that are searching for things like the top 10 DJs, right? Whereas Pepsi comes up as number 4. When we come up as a brand that is pivotal to people's opinions within pop culture, that's certainly critical. And as we look at our social channels, republishing that content, being able to have a real-time dialogue is pivotal. And as we get our entire marketing team focusing on real-time media marketing and really being able to understand those opportunities when to have that dialogue with our consumer, it shifts our marketing focus from a pivotal, sort of a punctuated communication to this, always on, continuous dialogue with our consumers, and really empowering them with new information, empowering them with information that they could take into their lifestyle and allow them to, succeed.
Okay, with a little bit of time left, share what's coming up next. Where do you see this going, or what's coming next specifically for your organizations as it relates to solving the content conundrum?
Well, it's a journey. I would say one of the overarching themes here about integration in the digital experience. I think looking at it end to end is where we're going. More empowerment, more self-publishing. And more wins behind us, and I think as we get those wins, we'll continue to make progress.
And you're tying it into CRM because you're B2B. You're tying it into lead generation and sort of.
For us, it is all about the leads. So we do tie it into CRM, our marketing automation system, our metric system, and our flagship web property. Our mission is really to drive people in the social sphere to a property. Our own property, emc.com. Once we get them into emc.com, we want to drive them into an online store that we recently launched and drive higher conversion rates. So that's one point. The second point, from a content perspective, we did just launch a new area called EMC Plus. EMC Plus on the homepage of emc.com is really a content river, and the intent of all that document and content there is to get people to share and, again, drive people back into the site so that ultimately we can convert them into leads and revenue.
Yeah, I think, for us, as we start to look at the true 360 of our marketing efforts, really valuing our own channels and understanding that content only increases those values. Every visitor that organically comes to our site has an equal value to, the visitors that organically go to Yahoo when we do, a full Yahoo takeover. So that's the focus on our content, and the quality of that content is certainly pivotal in how we look at, how we're doing our media spends.
Well, thank you, Mike. Thank you, John. And they'll be around to answer questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Sam.